All right, Sam, we're gonna get going. This is totally an experiment, so if you can't hear, I really, really apologize, but let's hope this works. All right. And awesome, thanks, Sean. Anyway, this will be posted later on our YouTube channel. It's also. Okay, bye. So.
Hello, Moto.
All right, everybody, we're gonna get started. Ready to quiet your conversation. Like, do you have a Zoom going? So this will be recorded phone. Yeah. May not have any before we get started, say, oh, great, wow, that's about 8 o'clock. We do have a lot of people here. Thank you, Mia. So I'm going to get us started. So ready? Excellent. Thanks, Kelly. All right. Bye. Greetings, neighbors. I wrote down a few words. It's been that kind of day. I'm not Ariana. I lived here in the West Ridge, West Park, both sides. Community for over 20 years. I'm the founder of the West Ridge Action Network. We started in 2017 when neighbors wanted to gather to connect together to protect each other from what we thought would be an onslaught of Trump-enforced ICE raids. When that onslaught did wait almost 10 years to hit our neighborhood, causing many of us to wear whistles and stand guard for this community and for our country. So I really do mean it when I say thank you for joining tonight. Thank you for the Park District for hosting us, for the support the forum. Being here, you being here, and you watching, I hope means you still hold belief in our democracy. Last year, our stalwart leader, Jan Schakowsky, announced her retirement. And the West Ridge Action Network held 3 meetings over the summer where we met over a dozen candidates. Tonight, along with West Ridge Community Organization, so thank you, Evelyn and Carol, for helping me working with me on this forum. We present a forum where who we believe are the top 6 candidates who confirmed to be here in attendance. We picked 7 because this forum of 15 people would take all day. This moment begs for urgency. So for our leaders, we need our leaders to be urgent, protecting and rebuilding a democracy we can be proud of. For community members to stay and become engaged in holding our elected officials accountable. I'm also a district counselor, so I know a thing or two about holding people accountable and being held accountable. The candidates, by being in attendance, have agreed to ground rules, which I will sum up to be: don't be assholes. I'm not going to read all the rules. That's the summary. Don't attack each other. We want to hear what you are going to be doing for us. We want to know how you are going to be in community with us and how you will govern with and for us. We are excited to have this forum moderated by Vic Duffy. Nick is the senior editor of investigations at Black Club Chicago, a nonprofit news organization that covers the city and its neighborhoods. He is also a resident of the 9th Congressional District. So, a little housekeeping. If you have not already found it, the restrooms are out in the hallway. Take a right. Candidates will introduce themselves. If you have a chance to submit questions when you RSVP, there's also index cards in the back and little tiny golf pencils. Andrew and Andrew and Evelyn are going to be wandering around, so if anybody would like to submit their questions on the index card, please do so. And then we will review them and hand them to Nick. Please hold your applause to the end of each segment, especially if you stand somebody up on the stage. There are people in this gym and watching over Zoom who still do not know who they're going to vote for. So please don't drown out those people who are trying to make up their mind today. At the end of the evening, if you can, please stay and help hold up the chairs. This is a volunteer event, so thank you so much. One last thing, early voting in person and by mail begins February 12th, and you can already request your vote by mail ballot if you go to the Chicago Board of Elections website. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Ben.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to, before we get going, we want to spend as little time as possible on rules and things like that and get to our discussion, our debate here. But I just want to stress what was just said about our rules. I'm going to revise it a little bit. Please don't applaud till we're done with the forum. Don't holler. Don't call out anybody's mother, anybody's father, family. Just we want to spend the time on the discussion. We want to hear from the candidates. We want to hear from you questions. So just to be courteous and respectful to everybody, some people are undecided. Some people are very firmly decided. That's awesome. But hold the applause, hold the hollers. Do that after the questions. Thank you. All right, let's just jump right in here. We are going to get each, just so everybody knows, each candidate is going to have 2 minutes to answer each question along the way. So we're just keeping it very consistent. And Pamela in front has volunteered to be a timekeeper. You all can't see that, but that's important for the candidates. So keep an eye on the timekeeper. If you end up getting long-winded or sort of filibuster, she will warn you. And then I don't want to be a jerk up here. There we go. Whistle. And I'll cut you off if I have to, but I don't think we'll. So let's get started by asking each of the candidates to introduce themselves. And we're going to start by going alphabetical order, and then at the end, with summary statements, concluding remarks, go in the reverse. So,
are we doing the pledge? Yeah. No pledge?
Again, we're not taking direct questions from the audience anymore, just as a matter of course, so you can keep your questions and comments to yourself until the end. Okay. Let's go back to what I'm saying in introductions. Kathy can go first. Just give 2 minutes.
Oh, there's 2, so there should be.
Am I supposed to be sitting or sitting? Cool. Hi everyone, I'm Abu Ghazaleh. I am a researcher and journalist who covers the far right. My work dissecting, analyzing, and communicating far right narratives and extremism have led to me helping getting Tucker Carlson fired from Fox News.
All right.
Stop it. That's it. We ask you to refrain from commenting. We ask you not to be an asshole. You violated both of them in the first minute.
Run out a few extra seconds. I'll start from my last sentence. I'm Kitover, researcher and journalist who covers the far right. My work helped get Tucker Carlson fired from Fox News, triggered Elon Musk into deposing me, and most recently, because all the people I used to cover are now the users that run our government, have been federally indicted for the work I have been doing protesting ICE. I decided to run for office because I felt like many of our leaders do not take the threat of the far right seriously. And I know that because I and my colleagues have been warning them about where this moment would lead. And now we are here. I also decided to run, not just because of my track record fighting and winning against fascism, but because I think we can do politics differently. For one, we use our campaign resources to not just reach voters, but materially improve their lives. Our campaign office in Rogers Park and Blood, doubles as a mutual aid hub, and our events often serve dual purposes to help feed and clothe people around the community. We are also lucky to be the only campaign in this that is 75% supported by small dollar donations, with the most individual in-district donors of any campaign. It has been a crazy ride, and thank you so much to anyone who supported. Our top two issues are what I call anti-authoritarianism and basic existence. Anti-authoritarianism is exactly what it sounds like. The house is on fire, and we have to put out the fire to redo the house. And basic existence is the radical idea that everyone should be able to afford housing, groceries, and healthcare with money left over to save and spend. Because a single-payer healthcare system, protections against price gouging, and building more housing with better incentives to work with local businesses actually save us money while having better outcomes. Chicago is where my family started our life in America. It is my home, and I will do everything in my power to continue fighting for it as I have been. I want a representative for my entire life to put everything on the line to protect us, and I think that's what we deserve. I often say we deserve good things, and we don't have to settle, and that is the thesis for my campaign. If anything we talk about here hasn't answered any of your questions, please come to me after this forum. I used to cover Nazis for a living, so it is impossible to offend me. Thank you. No hooting and hollering, all right? Thank you. But you can laugh. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Bushra Amiwala, and it's great to be here this evening. I currently serve on the Board of Education for Skokie School District 73 and a half. This is the Zoom mic that I have to hold as well. My story is incomplete without my parents' story first. My parents came to the United States from Karachi, Pakistan in the 80s and in pure immigrant fashion with a $20 bill and lots of dreams. They built their life in Illinois 9, brick by brick. My dad is a small business owner. My mom is a teacher. And growing up, I attended the top and bottom right public schools in this congressional district. And it was the differences in those education systems I saw growing up that became a guiding principle for me. It literally changed my life. So now when running for the U.S. House of Representatives, the top three priorities I'm hoping to advocate for is one, Medicare for all, universal health care. It's the logical mode for our country to adopt to, and there's a reason why from the 33 modern countries in the world, all of them haven't except for us. Second is supporting immigration with a clear path to citizenship. Folks who come here on a work visa, who find themselves getting laid off overnight with no notice, folks that come here on a student visa, who don't find employment within a year of graduation. And then third, my story does start and stop at education. It's increasing federal funding for public education so your zip code doesn't determine the quality of life and access to education your family receives. I'm the only candidate in this race with experience in the public, private, and nonprofit sector, so that means I know how to do three things: how to manage budget, problems, and people. I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you with just facial expressions. Again, no clapping or anything. And thank you all to the Westridge Action Network for hosting today. Have great fond memories here at Warren Park Fieldhouse, including every August 14th and 15th, Pakistan and Indian Independence Day, respectively. Thank you.
Good evening, Westridge. Right, no responses. I can tell you're excited. My name is Phil Ian, and I am not a politician. I do have a lifetime of service. I was an FBI agent for 21 years. During those 21 years, I led hostage negotiation teams. I fought terrorism, public corruption. But my start did not began in the FBI. My service began in 1988. You may recall, I'm glad to see so many folks from Moms Demand Action. Thank you for being here. That the first school shooting in America took place in Winnetka, Illinois. A deranged woman went into a classroom, opened fire on second graders. In the course of her escape, she crashed her car near a nearby, and she held a family hostage. That was my family. I was shot and attempted to disarm this woman, Lori Ginn, and nearly killed. I struggled for my life in the hospital for weeks. And just before I left the hospital, the doctor who saved my life sat on my bedside what I was doing about this. And I have never stopped working to keep families, children, and the community safe. That journey took me to the FBI. It took me to law school here in DePaul. It took me to Kansas. It took me to New York City. And it took me back here home. My parents grew up in this district. They met on the Foster Avenue bus. I came back here to raise my family. I am in this race because there is nothing more important than saving our democracy and holding this administration. I look forward to your support in doing this.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Biss. I have the honor of serving as mayor of Evanston, and I'm running for Congress to fill the extraordinary shoes of Jan Schakowsky because, you guys, we are in an emergency. We are in an emergency, the likes of which would have been hard to believe even had it been described to us 6 months ago. Fundamental attacks, our neighbors being kidnapped, people being shot by federal agents in broad daylight, the core of our alleged values being dismantled before our very eyes. I'm running because I think there are two things that we need in this moment. We need someone who has demonstrated the ability with backbone and courage and pushing through opposition and ruffling feathers if necessary to fight and win and get things done inside a government. And we need to acknowledge that you don't overturn an authoritarian menace just inside a government building. So you need a movement of people in the streets rising up and demanding in one voice a fundamental change. And therefore, we also need someone who comes out of the movement organizing and is prepared to put their body on the line in the streets. I am the only person in this race who's fought and won change inside of government and is fighting out in the streets with you. And that is what is at stake in this moment. Perhaps that's why Jan Schakowsky gave me the extraordinary honor of endorsing our campaign. I take that very, very seriously because of what she has represented for this whole community throughout her career of service. We need someone who can follow that legacy. I'm here today to ask for your support in this race and for your partnership in governing collectively to make sure we build the progressive America that we actually deserve. Thank you very much.
Please hold off the comments there. No, we said throughout the forum. Thanks.
You want to be out?
No,
Then, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm State Senator Laura Fine. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I probably served as the same senator in the 9th District for the past 7 years, and I was in the Illinois House for 6 years before that. We are in a pivotal moment in our nation's history. Our families are under assault by this administration. Our families who are currently living on the economic edge. I am the only candidate in this race who has taken on and won some of the biggest fights against the biggest special interests in our state and in our country. 15 years ago, when my husband was driving to work, he was hit head on. As a result of that accident, we were lucky he survived, but we were buried in hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical debt because of the fact that our insurance tried to cancel our policy.
But they picked a fight with the wrong woman because I made making it right my life's work. And in the Illinois legislature, I've been named the most effective senator in our state, only second to our Senate president. This is a time of action. We need people who do the work, not just talk about the work, but actually get it done. I've been named Legislator of the Year by dozens of groups, including disability groups, mental health groups, environmental groups. I've also been, as I mentioned, named one of the most effective senators in our state. I've passed 190 laws that most likely have improved your lives. With that, I have 100 endorsements from colleagues that I currently work with or used to work with because they know the quality of my work. They know that I am out here working to make your life better. And that is exactly what I want to do when you send me to Washington. It's time to stop. So thank you so much.
You can hold it, but Zoom can hear it better.
How's that? Good evening, everybody. I'm State Senator Mike Simmons, and I represent this neighborhood, Rogers Park, Westridge, Edgewater, Uptown, and Lincoln Square in the Illinois Senate. And in 2021, I became the first openly gay person to ever serve in the Illinois Senate and the first Ethiopian American. And I beat the establishment when I became a state senator. People told me to pound sand when I said I wanted to represent my community that raised me. And we pulled off an upset. People said it was a fluke. Less than 5 years later, I have passed 50 bills in the Illinois Senate. Legislation that clears medical debt for 400,000 households in the state. Legislation that creates the first child tax credit ever in the state. And a whole bevy of legislation that combats the hate that is increasing in our communities and protects access to reproductive rights. I am running for Congress because I am from this community. I grew up just a mile south of here in Foster and Lincoln, the son of an Ethiopian asylum seeker that had just got to this country and an African-American mother, like so many people in our community. And I grew up in a 3-flat public housing building in that community, and I am now a proud homeowner in this community right at the corner of Western and Tui, fighting for and representing you in the Illinois Senate every day. I'm running for Congress to be a strong voice for this community. I'm running for Congress to be on the ground with you. I think it's important that we have a representative that is not going to forget this community when they get to Washington. And I will always be with our neighbors at the block parties, at the senior centers, at the affordable housing buildings, making sure that your voice is amplified in Washington as we fight to dismantle ICE, to make sure that we have increase the federal minimum wage, and make sure that we protect our communities from the repressive and fascist violence that Donald Trump is unleashing on communities, diverse, beautiful communities like ours every day. I'm a product of this community. I look forward to fighting for this community, and I humbly and proudly ask you for your consideration and for your vote today. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, all the candidates. Appreciate you, your answers. Appreciate you. So, if you all haven't realized, we're trying to juggle multiple mics up here, so we'll hopefully get it right by the end of the quarter. But thanks to all the candidates for your introductions, and thank you all for adhering to it. So at least some people in the room are trying to follow the rules. Appreciate them. All right, let's just dive right into some of the issues here and some of the things that have been talked about already in this race. It's expensive to campaign for office, especially for federal office. So can each of you tell us here who are the sources of your campaign money? Who are the leading donors? And what does that say about how you would represent this district? Busher, do you want to start us off?
The funders and sources of money for my campaign can be answered in one word: the people. But for my remaining 1 minute and 50 seconds, I will add a bit more color and say that most of the donations that I've received, a lot of it are from net new donors, people who have never donated to a political candidate before. So when I talk about increasing civic participation, yes, voting is one thing. Yes, being election judge is one thing. But people who are financially able to give to a candidate who never have before is inviting people to the mold and the
beautiful way, I guess, everywhere, and the ugly way that campaigns function. And unfortunately, unless you're independently wealthy, you have to kind of raise that money on your own. What I am proud to say is every single couples max I have earned has come from the state of Illinois, and 80% of that has actually been from Illinois' 9th congressional district. So it's not just the people, but it's the voters. And that means I'm declining any corporate PAC, special interest PAC, bully PAC, and third, fourth adjective PAC related to any other group whose interest is beyond the voters and the people of Illinois' 9th congressional district. And I'll sound repetitive if I say it again. It's a great summary where my campaign funds come from. Thank you.
Okay, but who's your top donor? Who are your top donors?
Name the people.
That'd be great.
Sure.
We want specifics.
Okay, sure. I'll name some of the people. So first is we have the Rana family. They own the Sahara Healthcare nursing home centers in Morton Grove, and they live in Morton Grove as well. We have folks in the Wilmette neighborhood. We have the Ahmed family, and we've had siblings from that group that have also given the couples max contribution. We have had, let's see, I'm trying to go down the calculus, but yeah, I mean, I can name some of our smaller. My smallest donation is 50 cents, actually. So shout out to that. That came in an envelope from a 4-year-old. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the specifics. Phil, do you want to go next? And then I'll interject it. I think it's great you're all standing up. You don't, in my opinion, you don't have an obligation to do that, but proceed as you see fit.
Thank you for this question. My campaign, as you might imagine, not being a politician, not having prior campaigns and donors who I have associated with in the past, are my friends and family, or you, or the people. And I have no problem naming the top 25 donors to my campaign. Are you ready for this? I'm just going to give last names. Andrew. 25 times. I come from a large family in the middle of 7 kids. I was my mother's favorite, but I've started with my family. My wife and I have invested in this campaign too. We wouldn't ask our friends, our family to do this without us putting our own pocketbook behind this. Money needs power in our political system. You know that. You know that that is what's one of the things that's wrong. It's the way that our map, this map, this gerrymandered map that has Westridge with Algonquin, this is a map that was designed by politicians to pick voters. It's part of the problem. The money in politics is part of the problem. And in this race, there's a lot of money going around from national groups that are helping decide this race. You need to take the power back. I do have association with one political action committee. Very proud of it. The only endorsed candidate for Congress in Illinois by the Brady pack, by Jim and Sarah Brady. I walked the halls of Congress with in 1988. Sarah wrote my law school application recommendation. And I'm very proud that they've endorsed me, and I would be very proud if they would provide financial support, which I don't expect.
Is part of the problem.
I'm not my mother's favorite child, but she does love me also. I am proud to be supported by individuals across this district who I've worked with, who support my agenda, who've seen me in the fight and believe in me. I don't have my donor list memorized. It's all public information. I'm thinking about some of the people who've given the legal maximum in Evanston are, like, for example, Chuck Lewis, who's been working hard to advocate for reparations on the local level, and I think is impressed by my work on that issue, or Joan Rothenberg, who's a passionate environmental advocate and is excited about my work on that issue. I don't accept corporate PAC money. I proudly accept labor PAC money, and I'm proud to have support of a number of labor unions, some of which have financially supported my campaign as well, including being endorsed by the AFL-CIO of Illinois and the Chicago Federation of Labor. But I do think there's two things here that are really important. Number one, it's really important that we have candidates who are accountable to our community. I am the only one among the top tier of candidates, most of whose money comes from Illinois. The only one. That strikes me as important. But additionally, we can talk about how much the system stinks all we want. We need to fix it. In Evanston, I fought to create and successfully created public financing for mayoral elections. It's the only public financing for any elections in Illinois. I created it. It benefits anybody who would run against me, but it's really important. And we have to actually do more than talk about how money is polluting politics. We have to fight and win to reform our system. I've done that. And when you send me to Congress, I'm going to do it again.
Thank you. If you were to look at who my top donors are, many of my donors come from Lakeview, come from Evanston, come from Skokie. These are the top donors that are within my district. And you could go on because it's all reported publicly. You could go online to see who has donated to your campaign. Anytime somebody donates to my campaign, it makes me feel very proud because they are donating to my record. And that's a record of someone who stood up to some of the biggest bullies in Springfield and got the job done. I have the record of taking health insurance, for example. When I first came into office, we had a system that was stacked against the consumer. Because of my legislation over the past 13 years, we have one of the most consumer-friendly states when it comes to healthcare in the country. That's where people are donating to when they donate to my campaign. I'm a true environmentalist. I chair the Green Caucus, and I'm chair of an organization called the Great Lakes Legislative Caucus that works to make sure that our lake is clean for drinking water, for recreation, and for economics. I'm proud of everybody from those organizations and the environmentalists who donate to my campaign because my record shows that I work for the people and I work for the people in my district. And with this donation, they are getting a record of 13 years that they can count on. To my campaign.
I don't look like your typical member of Congress. I represent Donald Trump's everything that he's trying to erase right now in America. I'm gay, I'm black, I'm the son of an Ethiopian immigrant, and I'm proudly from this community. And I'm an effective legislator. And so I'm really proud to say that my first donor was my grandmother who raised me in public housing just south of here at Foster and Lincoln. And, you know, even now, as I look through the list, I don't have a lot of max donors. That's just the reality because I don't represent the establishment. I don't take money from corporations. I don't roll out my carpet for lobbyists. I represent people. And I'm proud that most of my donors come from the 9th District. They're small dollar donors. They're people from places like Westridge who saw me at the forum, decided to give us $20. Someone from Uptown who maybe saw my social media and gave us $9. Someone from Evanston who decided I like this guy, I'm going to give him a shot. They put up my yard sign, they wrote a bigger check. I'm proud that one of my biggest donors is Gretchen Sisson, who is an abortion author who's written books about reproductive rights, who called me and was proud of the work that I've done in the Illinois Senate to hold the line and protect reproductive rights, where I've actually whipped votes of other complacent Democrats that didn't want to vote to repeal arcane abortion laws, where I stood up to my own colleagues in the Democratic caucus to introduce legislation to make this a sanctuary state for transgender families that are fleeing surrounding states. I was the person that fought back against complacent Democrats in the Illinois Senate and actually passed legislation making this now a proud sanctuary for trans families and a blue dot on an island where abortion rights have been taken away in surrounding states. That's some of the people that have supported me so far. I think that it's really important to say that I'm proud to be sitting up here as a strong, viable candidate who has a strong message that resonates with people all across the 9th District, and money is not going to buy the seat. I look forward to taking my message to voters and winning their trust and doing a damn good job for them in Congress. Thank you.
Years that they can
and actually pass
like most of the people up here, we don't, or like everyone up here, I don't have a running list of my donors with me. I did reach into my bag to grab my phone. My campaign manager shook her head so hard. But we are supported by over 55,000 donors with an average donations under $30, $29.99, which is pretty cool. We also have the most individual in-district donors of any campaign in this race. That is not the most in-district money because, we don't know a lot of rich people. But a $7,000 check and a $20 donation still equal one vote. We are very proud to be able to be such a grassroots campaign. We also have abandoned this practice called call time, which everyone, including myself up here, does. Elected officials and candidates can spend as much as 8 hours a day doing it. You call rich people and you ask for money. No one likes it. We can all tell you that. No one likes doing it. No one likes getting the calls. So in our campaign, we have now started doing live streaming instead. 6 hours a week, we live stream. We get $1 donations here, $5 donations there, playing video games and answering questions honestly and transparently. I encourage you to tune in. It's a lot of fun. And it also means that we've freed up a ton of time to be able to connect with voters rather than sitting in a room and calling rich folks. Additionally, I have learned as a working class candidate that, oh my God, it is so hard to run for office if you're not already rich. Like, unbelievably hard. I have a cat. I don't even have kids. I don't know how people do it, especially if you're a single parent. We need public financing of elections. We need the ability to use campaign funds to help people be able to support themselves. I could go on a whole rant about campaign finance for literally hours. Check out my live streams if you're interested in that. But overall, I think what we need is to have a cleaner campaign system that doesn't mean that people who are trading stocks while they're in Congress get to use that money so that way they can trample over other grassroots community-based candidates. Also, twitch.tv/CatAbugazale, tune in.
All right, thanks everybody. As probably most of you know in the audience, just following up on this theme, you can pretty much give any amount of money you want to any candidate, if not directly, then through PACs, super PACs, or whatever. But the upside is that there are transparency rules in place. And as several of the candidates mentioned, if you want to follow up on what they said in more detail, fec.gov, you can look up any of the candidates and look up their itemized contribution list. I encourage you to do that. On the way over here, among the news reports I heard was one just mentioning again that President Trump is contemplating, or at least threatening, to invoke the Insurrection Act and send the military to Minneapolis. We had a similar immigration quote-unquote crackdown here in the fall, and I can tell most of you about that. But what I want to ask the candidates is, I'm assuming most of you are against these moves by the president's administration. But what I want to know is, what specifically would you do about it as a freshman member of Congress? There is a presumption of hope, probably among this group, that the midterms will turn out better for Democrats than the last election did, but there's no guarantee of that. So what exactly would you do as a rookie member of this large, complicated, often dysfunctional body? What would you do about it to address the use of federal forces to send people in and do these immigration roundups that we're seeing? And let's start this time with Laura.
Thank you. I still can't get over what I'm seeing happening in the streets of the United States. It is absolutely reprehensible that we are living under a reign of terror and violence in our streets. And I'm so proud to be in a community that works to protect our neighbors. And I'm also proud to be in a state that's standing up for what we know is right. In the General Assembly, we have passed legislation that says we need to unmask ICE. We need to hold them accountable. We need to know what their identity is. We have put in areas of protection around our schools, our daycares, our hospitals. We have also said that you can sue ICE if they violate your civil rights. Just this past week, I filed another piece of legislation This piece of legislation says that if you are hired under ICE during this reign of terror, you cannot get a job working in a police force within Illinois, state police or local police. These people who are creating terror on our streets are untrained and they are unhinged. We need to make sure that we stand up for our people and we make sure our voices are heard. I'm one who's known to stand up to bullies, and we need people in Congress right now who's going to stand up to the biggest bully of them all and make sure that our neighbors are protected.
Let's go this way, shake it up. Daniel?
So the question is, what would we do in Congress about this, right?
What would you do as a member of Congress, a low-ranking member of Congress? What specifically?
Right. First of all, we ought to abolish ICE. There is no reason to have this military-style enforcement entity. It ought to be gone. That's my position. That's what I'm going to fight for in Congress. Now, that may not be something that we can achieve on the afternoon of my first day in Congress, January 3rd, 2027. There's a lot of other things to be fought for. First of all, the insane bill the Republicans passed last summer jacked up the budget of ICE enormously. We need to roll that back. The Democrats have some leverage. We hope that your situation comes to pass and we have Democratic majorities in Congress next January. If so, we better use that leverage to make sure that no budget that allows for this level of funding of ICE goes forward. Even if Democrats don't take back the House, God forbid, we saw in the last few months the Democrats still have some leverage because of the filibuster. Again, we ought to use it to roll back ICE funding. By the way, the congressional oversight function is critical here. We ought to be impeaching these people. In a halfway normal situation, when an ICE agent murders someone in cold blood in broad daylight on the street, there would be an internal investigation inside of DHS to handle accountability. Obviously, they can't be trusted to do that. That's why Congress has to investigate and impeach, and those impeachments have to go up the chain of command. Finally, as an absolute table stakes initial conversation here, it is completely antithetical to the core principles of democracy for people to be able to use the violent power of the state anonymously. You cannot have a democracy if anonymous agents of the state can use state power to kidnap. They've got to be unmasked now.
This is not the Justice Department that I worked for. This is violence and intimidation being used by the administration to really tear at the core of our democracy. And that he is also tearing at the very agencies that are there to uphold the law, to support our democracy. When I see this, I think about accountability. The second part of our constitutional responsibility in our Congress is not just to pass bills, it's to hold accountable and have oversight. So who we send to Congress at a time with the largest potential turnover of new Congress people is going to be critical. People who have experience rescuing people from crisis, people who have experience fighting corruption and terror, which is the perfect intersection here of what we're seeing this administration do. And here's the hopeful piece, is that our court systems still work. That well-captured, narrated evidence brought to our courts around this ICE action will provide for accountability. We need to continue to do that. For those of you that see it, for those of you that are near it, I encourage you to calmly record and narrate as if you are going to bring that to court. Second, the second thing that gives me a lot of hope is that we are electing people with military, law enforcement, intelligence experience that we're sending to the Congress. In this largest class, we could be entering there. And we're not waiting to do that work then. We are organizing and collaborating right now.
First, we have to abolish ICE as an institution. ICE as an institution was only created 23 years ago, and there was a world in which this country did not have ICE. It is unnecessary, it is racist, and it targets our most vulnerable communities and families. Second, we have to ban private-owned detention centers. There are people who are profiting off of our neighbors getting kidnapped and being disappeared and then unaccounted for. Third, we must protect birthright citizenship. The Trump administration is intentionally playing on people whose birthright citizenship is, if they were born in this country, they are born a U.S. citizen, they are American. That is something that the Trump administration is also attacking at play. And then third, we must invest in judges. Due process is not being followed right now. We need more judges in the civil office of right now. And as a daughter of immigrants, I mean, I can't even explain how deeply personal this is. Every single time I see a picture, I see a video, it reminds me that that could have been my dad, that could have been my mom. And the murder of Renee was atrocious and it was horrendous, but that was not the first time ICE killed someone. She just happened to be white. And if that's what the turning point was for us and Americans to wake up about the Trump administration's crackdown on immigration, well, we still don't have healthcare and access to quality public schools. That is a mismanagement of funds, and it's with our taxpayer dollars. We all have blood on our hands. We should be disappointed, and those are the three things I would focus on once elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. Thank you. Immigrants, it is racist.
I think we have a lack of imagination right now in the Democratic Party and in Congress as a whole. Look, there are legislative things that I want to push. Abolishing ICE is at the top of my priority list. In fact, one of the few things I think we can work on Republicans with is limiting Customs and Border Protection's jurisdiction from the 100 miles of any international border, that includes Lake Michigan, by the way, to say 5 or 10 miles, as those representatives' constituents are devastated by ICE, even in red states. But we aren't going to get a bunch of progressive legislation through under this president. With the courts the sham that they are, with the president threatening to suspend midterm elections. We need to be more creative. And I personally believe that anyone with power, platform, or privilege, and that especially includes members of Congress, some of the most powerful people in the world, they need to be willing to put everything on the line. And we have seen that here in Chicago. I've been protesting at the Broadview ICE facility where our neighbors are taken. I might have seen some of y'all there too. The first time I went, there was not a single elected official there as people got beaten as they got taken into that facility. Over the next few weeks, actually, 2 of my fellow candidates joined us, and still thank you for that. We got tear gas together. It's a bonding experience. But this should not be the exception. We're lucky that in this race, people want to abolish ICE, but we need representatives at all levels of government being willing to put everything on the line, being willing to call a point of order every 30 seconds if it stalls the Republican agenda. I don't care if it's rude. We are beyond manners here. We need impeachments. We need trials. We need to sign onto the Rome Statute so Kristi Noem can be tried at The Hague, and I am not exaggerating here. I'm sure many of you have had personal encounters with ICE. I know I have. I know my hands are feeling a little shaky. It's scary, but we need actual action. And you know I'll put everything on the line because I'm under federal indictment, guys. This is exhausting, but we're going to get through it.
I probably saw some of you during Operation Midway Blitz when ICE invaded our neighborhood, flew over West Ridge in helicopters during October. I was patrolling in front of a Mexican-owned supermarket at Western Chase as ICE thugs broke the windows of one of our neighbors at Western Tui, dragged him out of the car, and left his car sitting there with the windows broken. I think about my dad, how he came from Ethiopia under similar circumstances where his brother, my uncle, Wobishet, was disappeared by the government, and we never heard from him again. And I saw that happening right here in West Rogers Park. This is a national emergency. And I would submit to you that of everybody in this race, I have the most genuine degree of sincerity about the fight that it's going to take to dislodge ICE from our federal government, it absolutely means abolish ICE at a minimum. But it means fighting tooth and nail with committee chairmen who've been in power for 30 years, as I have done in the Illinois Senate, to defund this agency, to take the $170 billion out of ICE that was put there by the big stupid bill and put it back into Medicaid, put it back into Pell Grants, and put it back into housing where we need it to be. And it means coming to Donald Trump. It means raising articles of impeachment against him, Kristi Noem, Peter Hegseth, and Marco Rubio, and throwing them in prison where they belong. That's what the fight is going to require from anyone that wants to be the representative of the 9th district, given how diverse our district is. And as a product of that diversity and as a product of this community, you better believe that I have the passion and need to fight that fight, because I remember what they did in our neighborhood. I remember our neighbors right now who are still traumatized, our immigrant-owned businesses that won't open because they're afraid that they're going to get snatched up. Is why in the Illinois Senate I have brought forward legislation that would create a $50 million recovery fund, a small business restoration grant for those businesses that have been harmed by these ICE raids, because people need to start thinking about them before these things happen and not after the fact. And I am a legislator that has walked that walk.
Okay, thanks everybody. We're not going to spend the whole rest of the night in Washington, but there are a couple other things that members of the audience want to hear from you on. I don't have to remind everybody that there's been a lot going on in what we in America call the Middle East. I'm going to ask each of the candidates up here to tell us what foreign policy initiative in the United States would you most like to change, and how would you do it? Again, as a freshman member of Congress, what exactly would you do? Daniel, why don't we start with you, and we'll go that way this time. Did we go that way last time? I think we went that way then. We'll start with you and then go this way.
What foreign policy would I most like to change? How long do we have? Donald Trump is in charge of our foreign policy right now. We should stop assassinating people in boats. We should stop illegal invasions. There's a lot of things that should change. We should stop bizarre and I think strangely serious threats about Greenland that threaten to destabilize the entire Western order. But I think it's important to talk specifically about what you described as what people around here call the Middle East. I am quaint and old-fashioned enough to still believe in a two-state solution. I understand that Bibi Netanyahu doesn't. I understand that Donald Trump doesn't. I understand that Hamas is moving us in the wrong direction quickly. I also believe fundamentally in the legitimacy and authenticity of both the Jewish and Palestinian people's claim to that land, the legitimacy of their belonging there, and their fundamental rights as human beings to safety, to human rights, to self-determination, to autonomy, and to peace. U.S. foreign policy is not helping. It's not helping. That's why I support the Block the Bombs resolution, because it's no longer going to make sense for us to pretend that saying to Bibi Netanyahu, we wish you would act differently, but not doing anything about it is going to work. So I think we need to actually use the American budget, American soft power, and American diplomacy to bring about real peace and real legitimacy for both peoples to have the dream of two states living side by side finally realized after all these years.
Thank you. When I turn on the TV or watch the news and see what's going on in Venezuela with, as Mayor Biss had mentioned, with the blowing up of ships, or the president wanting to take over Greenland, I think to myself, why does he want to control another country when he's not doing such a great job being the leader in ours? That's where we need to step up, and that's what we need to talk about. We need to look at this military budget and see how it's being spent. Because I'm spending a lot of time knocking on doors right now, and what people are talking about are the bread and butter issues of economics. I can't tell you how many doors I've gone to where people have said to me, I can no longer afford my insurance premiums. People have said to me, I'm afraid I can't put food on my table. What am I going to do to send my child to school? I'm not going to be able to afford it. However, our government is more interested on spending money, purchasing another country, than they are really meeting the needs of people who are here at home. I too believe in a two-state solution where people in Gaza and people in Israel can live with self-determination in safety and in dignity. But I think where I differ from my colleague is I do not believe in tying Israel's hands right now, because I've been to Israel. I've been in the bomb shelters. I've stood on the borders and I've seen the threats coming from the other side. And it's very difficult to determine what is protection and what is not protection. And I think that's what we need to focus on. Israel has been our colleague and our friend in the Middle East for 80 years, and it's important that we continue that relationship.
You know, as the first generation American son of an asylum seeker from Ethiopia, I really think that the contrast between me and other folks in this field is that I have a whole different point of view on this that is global, that understands the implications of U.S. foreign policy and what it does to people around the world. You know, we only need to look no further than the example of the new forever war that Donald Trump has gotten us involved with in South America, where this is all about colonialism, neo-imperialism in the 21st century. I can see it very clearly as a child of someone who was basically displaced from Ethiopia in a context where in the last 100 years, we saw these type of forever wars. We saw how much it cost us and how much it cost taxpayers, how many lives were lost because of fragile men and big profits. And that is what Venezuela is all about. This is not about national security. This is not about the safety of the American people. And we need people in Congress that are going to be unequivocal in calling this stuff out and bringing the Trump administration accountable, because Congress has been very quiet as of late on this issue. I also think, and this is part of my platform at MikeSenders.org, we absolutely have to have moral clarity about the fact that there is a genocide that is happening in Gaza. I cannot sleep at night thinking about tens of thousands of families that have been separated from each other, children who are starving, people who have been bombed to death. And that is why I would strongly support Congresswoman Delia Ramirez's Block the Bombs Act so that we can deal with this crisis. And we see that there are crises like these that are happening in places like Sudan, where there's an ongoing genocide, and we don't hear anyone in Congress talking about this. That is a disgrace. We don't hear anyone talking about the refugee crisis that is happening right next door in Ethiopia and Eritrea. I would be a strong and moral voice on these issues. Also in Ukraine, where our Ukrainian siblings have been targeted by Russia, where a number of Ukrainians are now our neighbors who understand what it looks like when tyrants are controlled and lead to displacement in those communities the same way it did for my family. And so the 9th District is full of immigrants. I look forward to being a proud champion for moral clarity in U.S. foreign policy so that we do the right thing around the world and make up for the injustice past. Separated from each other. Sure.
I'm Palestinian. I know I don't look like it. The blonde is a dye job, but my father is a refugee. He was born stateless. My family started their life in Chicago, which actually has the largest Palestinian population in America. But what I'm about to say is not because I'm Palestinian. I have this really radical view that I think we should follow our own laws. And I'm tired of pretending like this issue is complicated, that this is thousands of years of complications, because it's not, guys, and not just for Palestine and Israel. Every civilian deserves safety. No child deserves to starve. Any war criminal under any flag deserves to be held accountable for their actions. And when it comes to Palestine and Israel specifically, we need recognition of Palestinian statehood, because no solution, which should not also be dictated by America, by the way, should have people who live there, but we're not going to reach any solution unless both parties are able to negotiate as equal partners. I did that in less than a minute. And that's what I think we should be doing in the thing that we refer to as the Middle East. I do really love that phrasing. But we also have, we have created a storm of chaos, not just in this administration, but over the last 50 years, as we've invaded countries for oil, as we have been trying to expand an imperial project that never seems to go anywhere, as we've sacrificed millions of lives, American and much more people abroad, for the sake of greed. This money needs to be going to making America better, not everywhere else in the world worse. And I also think one of the most important things we can do as foreign policy is the restoration of USAID, of ensuring that the aid that we were supplying the world with, it doesn't just help people abroad, it helps us too. When the world is healthier, we are healthier. When the world is safer, we are safer. And that will be a number one priority for me.
Situation in America, but so first and foremost, Leahy law is in place that means the United States federal government won't give a dime of our taxpayers to any entity, state, or country that is in violation of humanitarian law. Israel is in violation of humanitarian law, and our taxpayer dollars are funding what is happening. Just yesterday, $3.9 billion of further aid was approved from your taxpayer dollars. Meanwhile, the amount of things that $3.9 billion could have solved for in our own backyards, that is the contrast. If that is what it takes to show the discrepancy, then great. One foreign policy just within the past 3 or 4 months was the United States' unlawful and unconstitutional bombing of Iran. The way that we just kind of forgot about that with the news and media cycles, that warrants impeachment. That in itself warrants impeachment. The United States federal government is an expert at one thing, and it's destabilizing other countries. And we're seeing right now that whether it's the unlawful invasion of Venezuela, whether it's the unlawful invasion of Iran, and this goes both ways. In the same breath, when advocating for the genocide that's happening in Sudan, in Congo, we should also not trade with the United Arab Emirates. I'll say it. They are equally as harmful in disrupting and the murder and the unlawful killing of Black and brown bodies. It does not just start and stop at Israel and Palestine, but it is that playbook that we see around the country. And I'm tired of people being killed, being political. Like, to me, it's like, that's bad. And we're paying for it. So Leahy law voting, which means in that example, Russia is the aggressor and the perpetrator. So we still should and continue to offer aid to Ukraine in that example. Thank you.
I'm guided by this by really 2 experiences. One, I'm a survivor of violence. I know that violence often begets more violence. I also spent 21 years working in national security and going and rescuing people from some of the most dangerous places in the world and working to build teams, alliances with foreign governments, with other agencies. And what I'll tell you, to answer the question, what can we do as Congresspeople? Again, you need to arrive with a plan. As a single Congressperson, a single voice, you're not going to have much out of sense. But arriving in Congress with like-minded Congresspeople who have a vision for peace. That's what this is missing. Our world leaders, wherever they lie, are not leading with a vision of peace. The United States has lost that mantle. We have retreated from every major international body that influences peace. We've been kicked out of the UN temporarily because of our unlawful acts. We are using the same strategy that we are using right here in this community to threaten Black and brown communities. We're using that same strategy of violence and intimidation. It's no way to foster peace. And it's no way to gain any kind of mantle of influence for the problems that we do need to address. Climate change, global economies, free trade, healthcare. We are wasting and squandering billions of dollars on things that produce nothing, create pain, suffering. The only way to rein this is to win this midterm election will coordinate a strategy to hold this administration accountable.
All right, thanks, everybody. We could spend, and should spend much longer time on the United States' place in the world. But there are a bunch of other issues we want to touch on here, we have questions about. One of the many reasons I would argue that Donald Trump was reelected was that he promised to bring more affordability to more people. Raise your hand if you're against affordability up here. All right, I didn't think so. So what exactly can you do about it? And again, given all of you have passed, you've had a lot of great answers, thoughtful answers, but I think everybody wants to hear what you can do as a member of Congress about all these issues. But let's talk about the affordability issues specifically, not what you are in favor of, but what do you think you can actually do to impact what is a very complicated set of issues that leads to pricing and leads to all of our grocery bills going up, our housing costs going up. We'll get to healthcare in a minute, but what exactly can you do as a member of Congress to impact affordability? Phil, do you want to start us off? Just finished, but go for it.
Sure. Well, let me finish where I am. Is that there is a sequence to this. You do not get to affordability unless you get to accountability and oversight. Serving criminal subpoenas on the head of the Fed, an independent body designed to exactly this, to analyze our economy and provide independent insight and controls over our economy. This is unprecedented. Every president would love to squeeze and get whatever they could to juice the economy for an election cycle. So it is critically important that we first seize control of our democracy. Second, what can we do? We can start with a national strategy toward looking at how we affect affordability. What's happening with our housing market? How is it related to us chasing Black and brown communities with ICE in our community? Job sites for building are being undermined right now. Banks are having trouble paying those loans because the workers aren't showing up because they're afraid to, whether they're citizens or not. All of these things are interrelated, and it is incredibly complex, but we have to get the money out of politics. We have to send people who are serious about focusing on these issues and willing to work with others to get the work done and not spend a lifetime doing it. You cannot send people to Congress year after year, election after election, and let them run on issues like the economy without solving the problems. So for me, this is fundamental. This is about how we do democracy, and the rest follows through. These will remain complicated, as you said, even in the question. What are some of the things that we can do? Well, we have to first fix the way we do them.
Don't sit down quite yet. So what specifically would you start with? Just very quickly, what specifically would you start with?
You have to make healthcare available, affordable for everyone. You have to make child care available to everyone. You have to recognize that we need hundreds of thousands of more migrants in the United States to have a growing economy, and you need a system to do that. Do you see how these are all interrelated? It's not just one thing. Can we throw the price on this? Can we lift the tariffs?
Okay, that was several counts. Can I start away for it? Okay, thank you.
Appreciate the overtime.
I'm going to force everyone into overtime if we need to. So specifically, what would you do on affordability?
Don't force me into overtime, please. So first, thank you, Phil, for closing with it. It's repealing Trump's unlawful tariffs. The cost of tariffs come back on everyday American people. When the cost of goods go up, because a lot of our things, even if they're made in America, those resources come from other countries. The increase of those prices is coming onto the backs of everyday Americans. First, repeal those tariffs. Second, it's banning
price gouging. I know price gouging sounds like a buzzword, but let me paint a picture for you. Instacart, which a lot of people use to get their groceries, in a 2-mile radius, 5 different people were charged 5 different prices for the price of a dozen eggs. That should be illegal. That is unlawful, and that is a great example of how corporations are profiting off of us. So while billionaires continue to line their pockets and members of the House continue to invest in stocks and also line their pockets, it's the everyday Americans that get left behind. It's bought versus unbought right now, and that's why having a member of the House that is unbought is so necessary. So it's banning congressional stock trading as well. It's diversifying and increasing. So right now, only 5% of U.S. government contracts go to women. Let's increase that to 15%, right? It's demanding the U.S. government to invest in different types of businesses so the same 10, 12 rich families in this country don't continue to just get rich. And everything that we talked about today and will continue to talk about is an affordability issue, which is why it's all interrelated in that way. Those would be some of the 3 concrete things that I would do. Do you need me to go over time?
You said you'd start with tariffs, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay,
Let's test them. Thank you.
I'm also a no on tariffs. But I also think one of the things we have to recognize is we all would love universal health care and universal free care. I'm happy to spend the last minute of this answer talking about that, but there are some concrete things that we can do right now and some things that, maybe things will really change. Maybe everyone will change their mind on the right, but we have to be prepared. So first off, I want to expand constituent services. In our campaign, we use our resources to not just reach folks, but actually materially improve their lives. We work with a vast network of direct action and mutual aid groups. We help people find shelter. We quote them. If you need, some spare Narcan, come into our office. You can pick it up, no questions asked. We need to make constituent services even more expansive. There is money set aside for constituent services in every office, no matter who the president is. And so we could use that for a public service campaign, so people know that they exist in the first place, know who to call if they can't get their social security check or if their cousin is picked up by ICE, and then also institute a chat feature to make it more accessible, because who nowadays likes to stay on voicemail for 2 weeks? Additionally, we need to be playing hardball on budgets and on votes. I feel like a lot of Democratic leadership is allergic to the idea of leverage. Just yesterday, only 57 Democrats voted no on a bill that would cut funding from the UN, the IRS, and add funding for more military operations and for more war crimes overseas. And I would have also voted no on that. As far as what I would like to see, we need a Marshall Plan for the government. We need abundance not associated with Ezra Klein, just abundance. We are the richest country in the world. There is no reason anyone should have medical debt. There is no reason someone should have to quit their job because it's cheaper to do that than to have 2 parents working because you have to take care of a kid. We need to be investing in every part of our country. All of these issues are inextricable from each other. Climate, education, housing, groceries, healthcare, protections against price gouging, universal healthcare, and building more housing with federal incentives to work with local companies, like I said, saves us money.
Okay, that's a lot. So where would you start? Again, where would you start?
Tariffs and constituent services.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe things will really change. Maybe everyone will change their mind on the right.
I just think about growing up in public housing just a mile away from here. And I think about my mom staying up late at night as a single mother, trying to identify decisions between paying for rent to keep her salon open in Rogers Park or buying healthcare for her 2 kids. And I don't think that's right in our community. I don't think that it's right in our neighborhoods of Rogers Park, West Rogers Park, Westridge. There are so many people that struggle like this who shouldn't have to make these kind of decisions. I think about growing up. There are some folks that are running in this race that talk about SNAP. I know what it's like to live on a food stamp because there were times when that was the only way that my family was going to eat as a child. And so I have a deep sense of urgency on these issues around economic insecurity and why in Congress I would bring forth legislation to raise the minimum wage. We haven't done this in 20 years. It's ridiculous. No one can live on $7.25 an hour. We need to raise the minimum wage to $25 an hour. It is in my campaign platform at MikeSimmons.org. I will fight for that. I would also introduce legislation that would create universal health, universal child care in our country. I have a proposal in my platform that talks about this under the economic security section. We've got to do better by our parents out here. I think about my mom struggling to take care of her kids, struggling to keep the lights on. And in America, we can do a lot better than this. And what we need is people in Congress who have the backbone and have the lived experiences to understand what it is like to grow up this way, and will do everything that they can to make sure that the next generation doesn't have to experience that. I would also bring forward legislation to break up the private equity firms that continue to buy single-family homes in the 9th District as far away as Algonquin and Crystal Lake and right on down in Evanston, Skokie. Private equity firms are marking their territory right now. We got to fight back. I want our communities to remain diverse and affordable, and it's going to take a real fight with big corporations to make that happen. My life story is anchored in fighting these big corporations that took advantage of my mother and my family, and that is a large part of why I'm running for Congress, is to fight for those folks. And it's going to take a real fight.
Thank you for this question. Economics is the bread and butter issue. And many of my colleagues up here mentioned things. I had a conversation with a man yesterday who owns a small business, and he's afraid he has to shut his doors because his prices have gone up so much because of the tariffs, and his premiums for insurance have gone up so much that it's unaffordable for him right now. One of the issues that we really need to focus on is affordable housing. There was an article that came out not too long ago that said the first time a young person now may be able to afford their first home is at the age of 40. And that is completely unacceptable. We need to be creative. Right here in Illinois, I passed legislation to create the Cook County Trust Fund. What this fund does is it allows us to invest in properties that are available for lower income before the venture capitalists can purchase those properties and hike up the rent or sell those properties for a price that is unaffordable to most people. We also need to look at healthcare. And yes, I truly believe in Medicare for all. But I've also done some creative things here in Illinois by passing rate review so our Department of Insurance can reject rates that are too high. I also passed legislation that says nobody's healthcare dollars and premiums can go towards a CEO's bonus because this is getting out of hand. Another thing, increasing the minimum wage. If you are working full time, there is no reason you should not be able to support your family. And we also have to look at tax credits, the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit. Those need to be increased so our low income friends and neighbors have more money in their pockets so they can put more food on their tables.
Okay, so you would start with affordable housing. Okay, and Mike, I'm sorry, you missed, you would start with increasing the minimum wage, or where would you start? Just summarizing what you said.
In terms of the minimum wage,
In terms of addressing affordability from day one.
in the first 10 days of Congress, I would bring forward 7 bills that would address a rent freeze for our housing, that would create universal child care, that would raise the minimum wage, that would also bring grants to our small businesses, that would crack down to a billionaire tax on big corporations and billionaires that don't pay for their capital gains offshore. They continue to use those as tax havens. We can take that money and put it back into housing and healthcare.
Okay, there one. I was asking for one. Okay, got it. All right, fair enough. Danny.
Remember when you praised us for following the rules in here? Bunch of politicians. Can't trust us with anything.
Okay, I'm going to also break the rules and give a two-part answer. Part one, I want to talk about affordable housing because every affordability-related issue, you're going to run into the same problem, which is powerful interest and the need to be willing to ruffle feathers to make something happen. I've built my political career on the line as mayor of Evanston, fighting for affordable housing so that it would become legal to build housing for public school teachers to afford, or for the nurses and firefighters who work in our community to be able to afford, to change the zoning law so that would become a possibility. People told me, the fight's not worth it. You're going to piss off too many people. It's too hard. But I stayed in it, but we're going to get it done. I say that, first of all, because that willingness to be in the fight is critical, but also because that specific approach can be taken to Washington. If you were to say in Washington, hey, transportation dollars are going to be allocated
to the communities that have land use policies that mean they'll be used most efficiently, all of a sudden, cities and states across the country are going to change their policies. We're going to have more affordable housing near transit. It's doable and it's critical. But second of all, I want to back up a little bit on this affordable issue, Nick, if I could, and say we've watched for 50 years of big corporations have gotten bigger and more consolidated, use their monopoly power to come after us, and labor unions have shrunk, and the balance of power has moved. And that's why we have billionaires in control. That's why we have this affordability crisis. I'm proud to be endorsed not only by the AFL-CIO of Illinois, the Janchikowski, but by Senator Elizabeth Warren as well, because I've been in this fight and we need to go to Washington, enforce our antitrust laws, tax the very wealthy, and rebuild a strengthened labor movement for a 21st century economy to shift power back in the hands of working people.
Okay, so you broke it with the two parts. Where would you start, just to recap very quickly, where would you start?
I will return back to following the rules and say, by definition, what I said first is where I start.
All right. I've heard a lot of people talking about America has lost its ability to talk to each other civilly, to work together, to collaborate. I've also heard a lot of people saying, to hell with that, those guys are fascists, we need to stand up with fascists. And I've heard a mix of this tonight on this stage. So what I'm going to ask each of you is, working with Republicans when you're in Congress, are you in or are you out? How would you do it, and specifically name an issue that you would or you would not absolutely work with Republicans on? Let's start with you, Daniel.
I will always work with anyone to move forward policies that improve the quality of life of people who I serve. That's literally our job. So I'll give you an example of an issue that's really important to me, where there may well be opportunities to work across party lines, right? I get it. There's issues where there aren't. There's issues that have become hyper-partisan, and I don't want to pretend otherwise. I'm not going to persuade conservative Republicans on abortion or climate change. But look at issues like, for example, the regulation of social media. That's a real problem. We are seeing the ways in which information travels, the way in which attention is monetized, the way in which people relate to one another, the fracturing of society, the erosion of social capital. We are seeing it rock the core of how we organize ourselves as a society. And America, I'm sorry to say, is way behind in grappling with this as a real serious problem, because our Congress has kind of given up on solving problems. Our politics are so small, so unambitious. They see this fundamental problem in the middle of our society and then kind of say, well, hopefully someone else does something about it. That is an opportunity to do good. And it's also an opportunity to build coalitions that might not be obviously visible, because it's on an issue that affects everyone, where the concerns are severe and intense and emotional, and the partisan battle lines haven't yet been drawn because the solutions haven't yet been thought of. That's the kind of issue where you need to have ideas and then have relationships across the aisle and understand who you might have a shot bringing your way, and then be willing to stretch yourself to partner with people who you might find repulsive on other issues, but who you know you can work with to move forward on something really important.
Laura, how about you? How and when would you work with Republicans, if you would? Wasn't intentional, Thomas.
Good time. Thank you. We are in a pivotal moment in our nation's history, and our children are seeing so much bickering in government that they want to know, where can government work for them? And the best example I'm going to give you is my mental health committee. I chair the mental health committee in the Illinois Senate. And I always challenge people who tell me that Republicans and Democrats don't get along to come and sit on my committee and point out to me who is from which party. Because with my minority spokesperson, who is the complete opposite of me, She's from Southern Illinois. She's Trump loving, pro-life, pro-gun, but I've gotten to know her. And I've gotten to know about her family. And she's gotten to know about my family. So as a result of this relationship and knowing we're human and knowing that there are some issues we're never going to agree on, but there are other issues that we are. As a result of that, the people of Illinois have benefited. I've been able to pass some of the most powerful mental health parity bills in the entire country because we have been able to get along and get it done for our people within our state. We have been able to pass legislation that says if you need mental health treatment in an intensive outpatient way or inpatient, you do not need prior authorization from your insurance company. These are issues that cross party lines that we can work on together to better the lives of the people that we serve.
I think this is a really important question. Congress is a broken institution because so many people are so concerned with punching someone in the mouth and getting likes and not solving real problems for people in our communities. In the Illinois Senate, I've been proud to pass 50 bills in less than 5 years. That's a record. And a number of those bills got Republican votes because I sat down and I talked to them. For example, I passed legislation in the area of public transit that removes ridiculous requirements that those that are seniors have to keep going in every 2 years to certify that they're a senior, or for folks that are disabled to have to go in every 2 years to certify that. These things are ridiculous that we put these requirements on people. And so would you believe that was a fight in the Illinois Senate? I had to fight to get that bill called for hearing because lobbyists didn't want to do it because the transit agencies don't want to do things differently. I fought on that. I organized my seniors and folks in the disability community. We passed that legislation with bipartisan votes. So public transit is an area in Congress I want to be a champion on. I use our public transit. I'm on the 49B Western a lot as your state senator. I'm on the 290 going down Toohey. I'm on the red line, brown line. I grew up on public transit committee. I will fight for it in Congress. I also think in the area of water. I've been a champion for water in the Illinois Senate. I'm a champion for our environment. I'm a champion for our Great Lakes. I've gotten Republicans to vote for legislation that codifies Biden era requirements on limits on PFAS and forever chemicals in our water supplies. That took a fight, but I sat down and I had conversations with them, and we were able to pass that legislation, even though Trump has now gutted those limits across the country. Another area I would talk about where I would not work with Republicans is when they dog whistle on LGBTQ families. I'm proud to be the only LGBTQ person to serve in the Illinois Senate. If I won this primary, I would become only the third openly gay and Black person to ever take the oath of office in the U.S. House of Representatives. That can start right here. And in that context, I would not have a lot of time to work with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene that think I should exist or that me and my partner should not be able to get married. I'm not going back in the closet, and I can't work with a Republican that wakes up in the morning that thinks that I ought not exist in our society. And so I will work with Republicans where it makes sense, and I will call them out when I need to.
So my specialty in my career is understanding, analyzing, and communicating about conspiracy theories and extremism, which has taken over a lot of Republican leadership. But I always tell people, if someone wants to engage with you, there are always bigoted people. If someone wants you to justify your existence, you don't have to talk with them. But if someone's trying to engage in good faith, I try to do so as well. But when it comes to Congress, it's a little bit different because everyone wants to get the sound bites. So there are two issues specifically, besides what we talked about with Customs and Border Protection earlier, that I think that we can get bipartisan support for. First is a stock trading bill, which already has bipartisan support. But I also want to spearhead AI regulation at the federal level. There are currently 0 federal regulations for artificial intelligence, and it is devastating our society at all types of levels. Our kids are being used as guinea pigs for AI models. I think that we can also not only take that out of schools, but when your phone asks if you accept cookies when you open Safari, forcing companies to ask users to opt in to their data being used to train large language models. Also the Make Polluters Pay movement, which is very big in Illinois. I think we should be applying that to AI data centers as well, and ensure that we have more laws to protect the work of artists and likenesses of people, like the No Fakes Act, so that way companies can't be using our lives, or in the case of Elon Musk, our children, for profit. This is the only thing or one of the only things that didn't make it through Trump's big BS bill last year. Even Republicans were like, you don't want us to regulate AI at the state level for 10 years? That's crazy. For Republicans to say that, So I think we have a perfect time to be able to capitalize on this movement, to be able to protect people at all levels of society, and to be able to hold big tech accountable.
So I've knocked doors in Uptown and in Crystal Lake, which is about 70 miles apart. And even though it's mostly been in the Democratic parts of those districts, the Democratic primary, may as well be knocking and talking to those that are Democrats and Republicans, right? That is how different some of the thoughts, opinions, and beliefs are. And I found that the what of what everyday Americans want is actually the same, but the how of bringing them on board is where it differs, different talking points. So to me, I'll never compromise on my values and stuff. I will always be someone that stands true. What Republicans call illegal aliens, I call my neighbors. Right? While Republicans are obsessed with a woman and what she does with her body, I believe in a woman's right to choose. There are some places where that compromise just fundamentally cannot exist. But I would never want partisanship to get in the way of progress. And I'll give you the Marjorie Taylor Greene example. Yes, she's anti-Semitic, she's homophobic, she's Islamophobic, but we saw her stand up to demand the release of the Epstein files, one of the only ones from her party affiliation to do so, right? We saw her vote for an amendment that would prevent further military aid to Israel. That, in an example, is something that I would be willing to do as well if it's not popular within the party. What I would work with Republicans for is, one, it's increasing options for public funded education, not only the K through 12 level, but college education, trade school. We see that the Republican Party wants American first workforce. Great. Let's invest in a pipeline to help make that happen, because we're in the worst job market and economy that our country has ever seen. Folks saying it's worse than the 2008 crisis as well. I would also work bipartisanship lines and laws to invest in safer communities and taxing billionaires to pay their fair share. Republicans like lower taxes. I would argue I like lower taxes too, right? It's so expensive to live these days that I think that that would be a bipartisanship issue that would benefit both Democrats and Republicans. Thank you.
I've got a unique skill set when it comes to negotiation. As a hostage negotiator, I work with people who have fundamentally disagreed and have a very different idea of what the outcome should be. In the most dire of circumstances, when life has been on the line, I think to still bring peace. I run a consultancy called PAX. It's Peace in Latin. We have folks from conservative, liberal, gay, workforce, military, intelligence, psychiatric, and counseling backgrounds on one team to be able to respond to other people's crises. What we have going for us at this moment is our diversity and our humanity.